Hey y'all, it's Nancy. Thanks for joining me on the Whimsy Stamps channel today. I am making a mini slimline card today, and we're going to be adding lots of texture, depth, and dimension by using layers. Lots and lots of layers. And my very first layer is that mini slimline panel that was die cut before I started, and it is die cut with the brand new mini slim rounded die set. Now I'm using the largest die to create this panel, and it measures 6 by 3, and there are 6 dies in this set. And I actually use the smallest of the dies. You can hear them jingling. I've got them in my hand. I use the smallest die in this set to do my sentiment at the end, and I do some partial die cutting to cut out my sentiments, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So layer 2, as you can see, is the ink blending. Just again, simple ink blending, nothing fancy, going back and forth, getting my color down, just kind of down and dirty, and then going back and forth to kind of blend out those edges and those seams where they overlap. Now, I typically am not one that worries or stresses over perfection, because this is going to be covered up in large degree, and by adding the texture, the dimension, all the layers and the depth, it's going to be covered up. There's going to be splatters, which I'm about to do. And let me say this die set, the mini slim rounded dies, has several other dies that coordinate with it, including the slim rounded stitched die set that has 5 dies in it. And I was going to use that to create a frame for this panel, but by the time I got it done, I didn't want to cover any more of it up. So on screen you can see that I am adding some splatter. So this is another layer of depth. It's a layer of texture, of course, and I think it even adds some dimension, which depth and dimension, not a whole lot of difference to them, but yet there is. So you can see all the different colors, the water spots. I think it's beautiful, but I couldn't stop there. I needed a little bit of sparkle and a little bit of bling. So here I'm adding some little sparkly bits. I can't remember what this product is called, but I'll try to have it listed and linked downstairs, as I will with all of these products, especially the new release. I will link you over to the Whimsy Stamps store. Now, all of these things have a long open time, which means they stay wet for a long time. The sparkle does, the ink does, of course water does, so you want to make sure that it's dry before you do anything else on top of this panel, before you stamp, which you can see I'm doing, or if you're going to do any stenciling, or if you're going to do any type of heat embossing or anything like that, make sure that you hit it with your heat tool or give it plenty of time to dry. So the next layer you can see that I'm adding there is those branches, and I did several more, and you'll see the panel here in just a little bit, and that adds kind of a shadow layer. Adds the texture of the images, and then of course that extra layer does add some depth. So all these images are what the card is going to comprise of. Now these are cut out or stamped and cut out from the Hey Chickadee set, which is also newly released. It's not in April. I want to say it was it the end of March? I'll have to check on that, but it is a fairly new release, and it just has a special place in my heart. So stamped out one birdhouse, a couple of branches, and one little chickadee, and just doing some simple alcohol ink coloring. And if you look close, you can see that my ink was not dry. It's got a little bit of smear on it. But the way I colored this was to kind of look like this birdhouse has been out in the elements for a long time, and the water and everything has just kind of bleached and drained all of that color from the whole birdhouse down to the bottom. And so I think that the smears just go right along with that. So use 3 shades of blue and a couple shades of gray to finish off that sweet tiled roof. I love that tiled roof. And then also doing the interior so that it just looks hollow inside. And I don't show the coloring of the branches or the bird, just the birdhouse, but that's just kind of my process. And so here's where you can see that panel. So it has layer 1 is the panel itself. Layer 2 is the ink blending. Layer 3 is the splatters. Layer 4 is those branches that kind of create the shadow. Layer 5 is all of these images. And you can see that not only have I stamped colored and die cut all of the images, but I've also die cut a bunch more layers. So this little branch right there, that's one that I stamped onto the panel. That has 3 layers. The birdhouse, I think, also has 3 layers. The large branch has 4, and the bird has 5. So lots of depth, lots of dimension, and the texture. Oh my gosh, can you see? Can you see that? Now, you know I always audition my pieces before I glue anything down. And I always use wet glue because I need the wiggle room. Because no matter how many times I audition things, I still tweak and move around. But these pieces have so much depth to them that they're really like chipboard pieces at this point. And because I love this panel so much, that was why I did not create the frame that I was going to use by die cutting the mini slim rounded stitched die inside the mini slim rounded die. If I had taken the 2 largest of those sets and cut them out, it would have created a frame, and I really wanted to. That was my plan in the beginning, but I just couldn't cover up any more of this panel. So look at all of that. Have I succeeded, guys, in creating the texture, depth, and dimension in your opinion? I feel like I have, but what's your opinion? So here's where I'm taking my sentiments. Now I just stamped them down all wiggledy-piggledy, didn't pay attention, but I'm using the smallest of the mini slim rounded dies that measures 3.5 by 5, and I'm doing the partial die cutting. So you can see in the beginning I'm only cutting the left side. And I'm making sure that I tape everything down because otherwise they move around. And you can see here as I spin this hello around to do the other side, again, just partially die cutting that piece, my die slips. And it's not even in the machine yet. So you want to make sure that you definitely have everything taped down really, really well because you don't want any shifting or slipping while it goes through the machine. So when you're doing the partial die cutting, at least on these small ones and on some of the ones that are more textured, you can really kind of feel the ridges, if you will. On this one, it creates like a nice embossed line across the outline of the die. And when I do the partial die cutting the second half, it really just kind of slips right down in there, and you can feel it when it fits down in there. And so there it is. Now, I am not one that stresses about perfection, so it does not bother me that the word is wonky and that it is off-center. Doesn't bother me a bit. In fact, I feel like it adds to the charm of the card. And I do the same partial die cutting on all 3 of these words, and they're all different sizes, and I don't care. But of course, the words are different sizes, right? Even though they may or may not have the same number of letters, they're different sizes because the L's are narrow, and you get it. So as I'm putting these down, you can see that I am gluing them directly to the panel, not extra layers behind these, because I really want the images and that beautiful background to take center stage. And the sentiment is there, and obviously it's prominent, but I don't want it to be the focus. So look at all of that texture, that depth, that dimension, all those layers. And you can see the way I mounted the sentiment, the hello sweet chickadee. It kind of goes in a stair step. And I did the hello and the chickadee first and put them down where I wanted them. And then it was easy to center the sweet in between them, as you can see there. So there you can also see what I'm talking about the ridges around the outside. And the die just goes whoop, and it fits right down in there nice and snug. So guys, again, I ask, was I successful? Did I meet my own brief in creating the texture, depth, and dimension with all those layers? And, you know, I can't encourage you enough to go check out the new release. Everything is listed and linked downstairs for ease of shopping and for you to be able to find things super easy. Lots of things that coordinate with this particular die set. And again, this is the mini slim rounded die set. And there's also the mini slim rounded stitched. There is the mini slim pickens die that actually cuts out frames within this die set. And then there's also the mini slim rounded hot foil plates. And this is just kind of one line, guys. There's so much fun going on over at Whimsy right now. Check it out, and until next time, this is Nancy for Whimsy Stamps. I invite you to join us on the Whimsy Stamps and Inspiration page, as well as follow us on Pinterest and Instagram. And until next time, I'm out.